The planet Velkara had 3 moons and no mercy. That was the saying among the Karathi, the apex predator species who ruled this world with teeth and claw and ancient instinct. They had no written language for softness. No word in their tongue for shelter given freely. Their young, called cubs, learned to survive through hardship, through hunger, through the cold dark between storms. The weak did not last. That was the law of Velkara, older than memory. But something had changed. 6 months ago, the humans arrived. Kale Vera was not supposed to be alive. He was the smallest of his litter, 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and him, the runt the elders called Velsha, meaning the one the wind forgets. When the sickness swept through the northern den and took his mother, the pack moved on. That was custom. That was survival. The strong carried their grief forward. The weak stayed behind with it. Kale Vera stayed behind. He was 11 cycles old, barely past the age of first Fong, and he curled himself against his mother's cold flank for 2 days before he finally understood she would not rise again. He did not cry. Karathi cubs did not cry. But he trembled, and the trembling did not stop, and by the 3rd day he could not stand. That was when Mara Ellison found him. She was not supposed to be in the Northern Ridge sector. Her assignment was the Southern Observation Post, cataloging Karathi migration patterns for the Interstellar Xenobiology Commission. Mara Ellison was a field researcher, not a rescue operative. She had protocols. She had a chain of command. She had 17 pages of documentation explaining why humans were not to interfere with Karathi natural selection processes. She read every one of those pages before she climbed down into the ravine anyway. "Hey," she said softly, crouching 3 meters from the dying cub. "Hey, little guy." Kale Vera bared his fangs. They were the size of her thumbnail. She thought they were the most magnificent things she had ever seen. "Yeah," Mara Ellison said, pulling her emergency thermal pack from her bag. "I know. Terrifying. I'm absolutely shaking." She was not shaking. She moved with the slow, deliberate calm that she had spent 6 years learning in field conditions across 4 different worlds. She set the thermal pack 2 meters away, activated it, and sat down in the dirt to wait. It took 4 hours. Then Kale Vera, because he was going to die anyway and dying near warmth seemed preferable to dying in the cold, dragged himself close enough to feel the heat. Mara Ellison did not touch him. She just started talking. She talked about Earth. About her mother's kitchen and the smell of bread. About the first time she saw a whale and cried in front of her entire university cohort. About the way thunderstorms felt when you were small and the world seemed too large. She talked and talked until the stars came out, and then she opened a ration pack and ate half of it, and she set the other half on the ground between them. Kale Vera ate it. He had never tasted anything like it. It was terrible. He ate every piece. By morning, he could stand. The thing about Mara Ellison was that she did not do the sensible thing. She never had. It was, her supervisors had noted in her file on 3 separate occasions, both her greatest professional liability and the reason she kept getting sent to the hardest assignments. She did not leave. She filed a report, an honest one, which was the only kind she knew how to write, explaining that she had made incidental contact with a juvenile Karathi individual in life-threatening distress, had provided minimal stabilizing aid, and was continuing observation to assess long-term impact. She used careful language. She used words like incidental and minimal and observation. She did not mention that she had spent the second night teaching Kale Vera to play a card game using illustrated ration pack wrappers. She did not mention that he had one. Word traveled strangely on Velkara. The Karathi had no telecommunication, but they had scouts, and they had memory, and they had the particular animal awareness of beings who had survived on instinct for 10,000 years. Within 2 weeks, other cubs began appearing at the ridge. Not many. 3 at first, a small female with an injured forepaw, a pair of brothers who had been separated from their pack during a flash flood. Then 5 more. Then 9. They came the way Calvera had come, desperate, half-dead, and furious about it. They snarled. They snapped. They took the food and the warmth with a grudging ferocity that Mara Ellison found deeply, privately endearing. She filed more reports. Her supervisor, Dr. Chin, called her on the comm and said, "Ellison, what exactly are you doing out there?" "Observation," Mara Ellison said. There was a long pause. "I'm sending you Reyes and Park," Dr. Chin said finally. "For backup observation." Reyes arrived with 3 cases of medical supplies and a portable shelter unit. Park arrived with an encrypted hard drive of Karathi behavioral literature and a very large knife she never put down. They took one look at the Ridge camp, the mismatched thermal packs, the ration wrapper card game tournament, the 9 young predators sleeping in a pile like they had never known anything else, and did not say a single word. They just started setting up. The Karathi elders came on the 43rd day. There were 7 of them, enormous and gray-scarred, moving through the forest with the silence of things that had no natural predators. They crested the ridge at dawn and looked down at the camp below, at the pale, fragile, 2-legged creatures who had built shelters and fires, who moved slowly and made soft sounds, who were watching over 17 Karathi cubs sleeping in the gray morning light. The elders did not speak. They observed, the way predators observe, absolute stillness, absolute attention. Mara Ellison saw them. She did not reach for a weapon. She did not call out to Reyes or Park. She stood up from where she had been sitting beside Calvera's sleeping form, and she met the eyes of the largest elder, and she did the only greeting she knew that every species in the galaxy seemed to understand. She nodded. Slow. Deliberate. "I see you. I am not afraid. I am not a threat." The elder stared at her for a very long time. Then he looked at the sleeping cubs. At the careful arrangement of thermal packs. At the cleaned and bandaged forepaw of the small female. At the empty ration wrappers and the illustrated cards. At Calvera, the runt the wind forgot, breathing steadily in the warmth. The elder made a sound, low, resonant, from somewhere deep in his chest. The other 6 made it too, a rumble that Mara Ellison felt in her sternum. She would later learn, from 6 months of careful linguistic study, that the sound had no perfect translation. The closest was something like, "We did not know this shape existed in the universe." The elders left. They came back the next day, and the day after that, and eventually they stopped leaving. By the time the Commission's formal review team arrived, 8 months later, with clipboards and furrowed brows and a very thick file on the Ellison incident, the Ridge settlement had expanded considerably. There were 23 human researchers. There were 41 Karathi cubs in active care. There were 6 elder Karathi who had taken what could only be described as supervisory positions, because it turned out that an apex predator species, when shown a new way of doing something, adapted with extraordinary speed. Calvera met the review team at the perimeter. He was 14 cycles now, nearly a young adult, his first adult fangs fully grown. He was wearing a combead Reyes had traded him for 3 consecutive losses at the card game, and he regarded the team with the particular expression Mara Ellison had come to recognize as his thinking face. "These are the ones who might make you leave," he asked her, in the halting shared pidgin they had built together over 8 months. "They're going to try," Mara Ellison said. Calvera looked at the review team. Then he made the deep chest sound, and 41 cubs raised their heads from wherever they were, and 6 elders appeared at the treeline. The review team lead stopped walking. "Mara Ellison," he said carefully. "What exactly is happening here?" She considered the question seriously. "I think," Mara Ellison said, "we're being kept." Calvera made the sound again. It was different this time, shorter, higher. She had learned that one too. It meant yes. Obviously. Keep up. The review team stayed for 6 days. They left with 40 pages of revised protocol, a formal recommendation for permanent station establishment, and the haunted expressions of people who had encountered something their categories could not quite contain. Somewhere on their shuttle, someone wrote in the margin of their notes, "Humans, they find the dying things. And they just stay." No one disagreed.